Death Stranding 2 will let you clear bosses without beating them. That's kind of odd. Let's see what this means. Hideo Kojima recently revealed on an episode of the Koji Pro radio broadcast that Death Stranding 2 will have a unique boss battle mechanic. If you succumb to a boss, you'll have the option to simply move on and soak up everything you need to know about that boss fight via a visual novel feature. What the balls? This is good news for players who traditionally struggle with intense boss fights, which are often front and center in Kojima's games. Effortless victory. Koji Pro radio broadcast uncovered and helpfully translated by Genji JPN has revealed that boss fights in Death Stranding 2 can be walked through without any effort. If you want to skip through the game as quickly as possible, you simply need to lose the boss fight and select an option on the death screen to skip over the boss. Some have complained that this is giving into the hand-holding trend that's coming up far too often in video games. But I, for one, am happy to see it. Not me, that's what the authors said. There's a reason why I don't play games like Elden Ring, and it's because I suck ass at boss battles. Not me. Again, that's what this says in the article. Instead of seeing the results of a successful boss fight, the player will see a breakdown of the fight through a visual novel mechanic that gives them the full scope and ensures they're not missing any lore or context. So, here's my issue, right? And one of the things that I've been kind of vocal about in, being worried about what Kojima does with games nowadays is making them too movie-like. In my opinion, there's this trend happening in the video gaming industry of really trying to turn video games too much into a movie. And video games have always supposed to have been about the experience of playing the game. If you're taking away the experience of playing the game, are you really playing a game? Or are you just watching a movie? So, I'll give you where I kind of draw the line on this kind of stuff, okay? So, recently I had a video or a news segment we covered, and I turned it into a YouTube video in regards to Doom the Dark Ages, right? And I'll share this in chat right now. So Doom the Dark Ages was getting called out for being woke because too many people don't have an actual definition of what woke is anymore. They just chunk everything into this woke basket. But Doom the Dark Ages, it was revealed that that game had different difficulty sliders for different aspects of what the game provides. And so whether you wanted to slow down certain aspects of the game, make certain damage things more or less powerful, there were a lot of different things you could do in that game. And, in my opinion, look, video games for a long time have given players the option of difficulty settings, difficulty sliders, and now all of a sudden you're going to throw, it's like, oh, a game comes out with difficulty sliders and it's woke. That's weird. Don't do that, So, in my opinion, giving the game player from a developer's standpoint, giving the game player an option to play the game from an artistic viewpoint, play the game on a harder difficulty versus a softer difficulty, or not giving any difficulty options at all, which a lot of people, which you'll see in most From Software games, if not all From Soft games, especially their Souls-like games. I think that's an artistic decision, and I respect that. I'm also a little bit biased because I play very hard games all the time, and if I play any game that gives me the option for difficulty, I always crank it up to the highest difficulty because I enjoy that experience. But I respect the fact also that there are a lot of people that don't necessarily need to play a game on a high degree of difficulty to enjoy the experience. But this is something where I will kind of draw the line. So, as a core piece of the gameplay experience, apparently, boss battles in Death Stranding 2, you don't even need to win to progress. And for me, that's weird. That's just weird. Somebody that has been a game player for a long time, you know, I'm going to be more accommodating and more understanding of maybe a mechanic where the more you fight a boss and the more you struggle with a boss or something like that, it goes, would you like us to decrease the difficulty? Or naturally have an option to just decrease the difficulty in the game, but still allow you to play it at whatever your skill level is for completing the game, right? But to just be able to completely not have to deal with a core experience in the game at all, which is boss fights, you can just stand there, wait for the boss to kill you, and move on. That is taking away from the core mechanic of what a video game is. Why are the boss fights even in the game then? You know what I mean? From my standpoint and my, you know, where I'm coming from with this, there's a distinct line about where it's okay to provide people with options to accommodate different skill level and ability in playing video games, and where you're just letting people get by with not having to actually experience what video games are about. And that's what I feel like this is. Video games are about playing the game. And if you're letting people get through core sections of the game without having to complete something, why is it even in there? I'm just not a fan of it. I'm just not a fan. For me, that is one of the key pieces of what video games are about. And now, again, I would be much more accepting of the fact of whether, you know, difficulty, you can crank the difficulty down for people that just aren't good at video games, but they still have to get through this and accomplish this fight or whatever, right? But to just be able to stand there and just wait for a boss to kill you and then go, yeah, this is good, nice, this is over, that feels weird to me. Really weird. And I've said this for a while, and I'll get a lot of hate for this. I will get a lot of hate for this. I'll preface it with Kojima has been an absolutely incredible thing for the video gaming industry as a whole. We would not be where we are right now without Kojima. An industry leader. He has an incredible creative mind and has shown us so many things that we can have with video games. But I feel like there's a lot of what's happening with Kojima, and has been for years now, and his products, that is, he just wants to make a lot of movies. And that's another weird thing for me, where it's like, how much of the video game experience is actually video gameplay? It's always really off-putting for me whenever I'm playing a game and I'm constantly being disengaged from playing the game and actually just watching stuff. And for me, that's a turn-off. You know, don't get me wrong, there's something really, really great about a well-timed, appropriate cutscene that can give you solid information on lore, character narrative, you know, things of that nature. It's great. But when you talk about games, for instance, like Final Fantasy 16, where there's just as much cinematic in that game as there is gameplay, it doesn't appeal to me at all. Not in the least. because I know I'm going to be sitting there watching that game as much as I'm even playing it. And for me, it's just not an appealing thing at all. So, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this, honestly. For me, as the type of game player I am, I guess, and somebody who has always felt like the core of what video games are is playing the game, you know, and accomplishing progression. You have to some extent be able to accomplish a goal to progress. This is completely removing that from the gameplay. You can just stand there, let your character get their ass handed to them, and go, okay, move on with the story. You know? And for me, that is just completely demolishing a core aspect of what video games are supposed to be about. Again, I would be much more okay with if people need a relaxed difficulty setting to progress. That's okay, because I understand not everybody has the same aptitude for gameplay, you know, the same ability. But let people accomplish progression, not just have it handed to them. That's like a participation trophy, man. You know? I'm not about it. It doesn't feel good to me. And yeah, I think that there are definitely some games where, you know, I think allowing people to do pacifist playthroughs and stuff like that, yeah, okay, cool, you know, but that's not the case here. And don't get me wrong, I do think there's a place in the gaming industry for games that would be labeled as like a interactive cinematic experience, okay? But I think that definitely needs to be a genre, okay? I think that needs to be a genre that is explicitly labeled out for people. Because there are going to be a lot of game players like myself that don't necessarily want to be experiencing these types of games. And there are a lot of developers that are moving towards that kind of experience. And for me, that's not a video game. But I guess that's what I'm getting at, Cash, is that playing a game? I think that's what I'm trying to get across to people is like, you know, I think there's a difference between what video games are supposed to be about and what you're supposed to be doing in a video game and what progression is in video game, and where these lines of, are we actually just watching movies or are we playing video games nowadays? You know what I mean? I personally feel if this is where, and again, I feel like I'm a more open-minded person than a lot of people are. No, it won't. And I know that that's also a sentiment that people will throw at this. Yeah. And I'm definitely one of those people that sides with the more options a game player can have, the better. But this one does feel weird to me. It feels weird to me. And because I do feel very, very strongly that it takes away from the core aspect of what video games are supposed to be about. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. At all. And I kind of expected to have some feedback like that, whether it be now or if, you know, I'll probably turn this into a YouTube, because I feel like this is something that needs to be discussed. So I'll probably turn this into a YouTube video and let other people throw some ideas at this. But you're not wrong. I just don't feel like it's a video game at that point. I feel like it's more like watching a movie or a TV show. Well, what's the point? If you're not having to play the game to progress, what is it? Right, right. And that's what I was getting at before Super Donut, is like more of an interactive cinematic experience, right? That needs to be a dedicated genre for video game players that want that type of experience, right? Yeah, and that's one of those other things I was getting at, Cash, is that, like, I think Kojima, while an incredible artistic mind and everything, I think the more he's gone into modern gaming, the more he's making... I think he just needs to go make movies, personally. You know? That's just where it feels like to me, because I'm not a big fan of it. Unless you're, really going to be explicitly telling people, like, look, this is not going to be your traditional video game. This is going to be more of a cinematic experience that you'll have interactivity with, and be upfront about that. I'm not a big fan of blurring the lines behind calling something a traditional video game that's not really a traditional video game, That just feels weird to me. And I think that's where Kojima is nowadays. I don't know if he did or not. If he did, then props to him. If he did, I haven't heard that quote though. Maybe he did. Maybe he did. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about with that. Here's the other thing to consider. Kojima is a very influential person in the video gaming industry. So does this start a trend? Even in games that aren't meant to be even semi-cinematic, does this start a trend now? Where if people can't get through a boss, they just have the option to just skim through it? Because that's going to feel bad, dude. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm just really not. Maybe it does have a quote somewhere saying that. Dark Souls Light. Yeah. Yeah.